Okay, welcome everyone. As we learn, Zeichen Nishmas, my father, Reb Aaron Tzvi ben Remeir, Hershey Weiss, his neshama should have an aliyah. It is known that they asked the Satmar Rebbe, when he left Eretz Yisrael, they asked who could they give a kvittel to. So he said, find a yid that had numbers on his arm, and if he had the marks of his tefillin straps still on the same arm, then you could ask him for a kvittel. Well, that was my father. My father had the numbers. He was in Auschwitz in its unfortunate heyday, worked in I.J. Farman in the mines, and was in the death march, liberated by the Americans, and he did wear tefillin all his life. I even have in my possession tefillin that he brought out from the camps. Tiny little tefillin. Maybe one time I'll bring it down to shul and show it to the Olam. So his neshama should have a great aliyah. He should be a Me'eletz Yosher for my mother, Saba, for our entire family, and all of us. We're sponsored also by Shalom Fogel, Lili Nishmas, Rabbi Yaakov Zeb ben Rabbi Yudah Aryeh, Maris Rivka Bas Rabbi Yaakov Yosef, Maris Tzivya Miriam Bas Rabbi God, Rabbi Yosef ben Tziyam ben Rabbi Yaakov Zev, by Baruch Ian Lili Nishmas Yaakov Chaim ben Abba Esther Bas Gittel, Avram ben Shmuel HaKoyen, by Yaakov Yamansky with Akar Satov to the Rav, the Zoom family, and Nachas from children and grandchildren by A.B. Spry as well, for Nachas from children and grandchildren, Ed Saleh from London, and Joshua Rosenberg, a virtual Talmud. We learned for Shimon Yehuda ben Gittel, he should have a refuah shalema b'sech she'achel Yisrael. Now, we said that it is the opinion of Rav that a shtar also creates enough of a koil that in the event that someone sells property with a shtar, so you could collect from it if a person had a previous lien. He could, if a person has a previous, if the property is taken away from the person that not a shtar, that bought it with Adim, so the subsequent buyer is supposed to have known about it. So, says the Gemara, does shtar create such a koil? Umiyama Rav Hachi, v'tanan hamalves chaveru b'shtar. In the event that Shelley takes a loan from Menachem, and he takes a loan with a promissory note, so Gayvim Nechasim Mishabad, if Menachem can't pay, so he can collect from subsequent buyers, because Shelley has a previous lien, and the buyer should have known about it because he had shtar. But al yedei edim, if there are only witnesses, Gayvim Nechasim b'nei chayrin, he can only collect what Menachem Umansky has. He can't collect from people that bought from Menachem, because if he only did it with Edim, those buyers would not know about the loan. So you see that Edim is not enough to create a koil. So you'll say, okay, but Rav straddled the area of the Tanoim, the era of the Tanoim and Amoraim, and therefore Rav Tanahu Polik. Rav argues on that Mishnah, and he holds that Eidim create a Koil. But the Gemara says you can't say that. Well, Rav and Shmuel Dimrei Travaya, Rav and Shmuel both say that Milva al Peh, that if Shelley did an oral alone, without recording it in a shtar, even though there were witnesses, Ein a goy v'loy min hayoshim, he can't collect from ears, v'loy min halakuchas, and not from buyers. So you see that Rav himself holds that Eidim alone is not enough to alert the buyers that there's a previous lien. So the Gemara says, a very interesting teretz. I'll speak to you outside before we learn it inside. The Gemara says, before we were talking about a sale, now we're talking about a loan. There's a difference between a sale and a loan. You see, a sale, when Shelley sells a piece of land, he wants everybody to know about it, because he wants to get the highest bidder. So there, even with Eidim, there's going to be a curve. On the other hand, when Menachem takes a loan from Shelley, he doesn't want people to know about it. Because if people know about it, then his property will go down in value, because they'll know he's desperate for funds. So a loan, a person tries to cover up. If it's recorded in a shtar, that gets an automatic curve. But otherwise, people don't know about it. And that's the Gemara's answer. Let's see it inside. Says the Gemara, Milva azvine karamis? You're comparing a loan to a sale? Milva, a loan, Kika Yosef, when Menachem takes the loan from Shelley, Betzinika Yosef. He takes the loan very, very secretly. He doesn't want people to know that he's hard up for cash. Because then if he's hard up for cash, people will know that he has to sell his property and he won't be able to get good money for it. In order that his property shouldn't become cheap. I think I once told you, it used to be that a subscription to my tapes, a person got a tape in the mail every week. So Fisher used to get a tape in the mail every week. Shelley got a tape in the mail. Shelley got a tape in the mail every week. Who else over here got a tape in the mail every week? Not many people here, wow. But that, for a good amount of time, that was a very big piece of my parnasa. And I charged $20 a month. I remember that at that time, to mail the tape was 33 cents. And the tape costed me 30 cents. And my wife and I would make the tapes and label them and mail them. But anyway, I had a subscriber that sent me a note if I could continue sending him, but he can't pay. But he was driving a late model Jaguar. He's driving a late model Jaguar, but he can't pay $20 a month. So he noticed me one time looking at his car, and he told me that if he didn't drive the car, then all of his business interests would suffer. He was chained to the car because that was his face. Otherwise, as the Gemara says, litazlu nichsei alei, all his properties would be cheapened. However, zvine, when somebody makes a sale, to the contrary, he wants everybody to know that he's making a sale to get the highest bidder. Zvine man de zaven Arab b'farhesia zaven. He sells it publicly. in order that people should know about it. And therefore, even with Eidim, it generates a curl. Now, I didn't welcome everybody, did I? We welcome in Berish Gesseman and Saba. We welcome in Ben Zion Cohn and Baruchian, Aaron Swade, Irving Fishbaum, Nachman Chapley, Yisrael Fisher. In the shul there, we have Michal Chavin, Ruvain Shannon. Is Gedalia in the corner? No. Dr. Block, Chaim Krainer, Shelley Zeitlin, Dr. Guy, Yitzi Fuchs, Nachum Umansky, Shalom Fogel, Rabbi Kranz, Rich Leonard. He was probably far away from the shul. You're at your office tonight? No? Oh, just a very far drive. In the rain, very far drive. I know, and the parking, and I know everything is very, very complicated. I know. Michal Akta, Eddie Chazan, Stephen Holtzman, Ruvain Pollack, Moshe Lehman, A. Barbach, Ilya Shutman, Chaya Braun, David Helfgott. Okay. Tan Rabbanan. Achla of Shana, Va'ben Shtayim. Avram, here it's Rich is the Marikama, the original owner, and Avram used it 1 year, and then his son used it 2 years afterwards. Or Ha'ov Shtayim, the father used it 2 years, Va'ben Shana, and the son used it 1 year. Or Ha'ov Shana Va'ben Shana, Avram used it 1 year, Yitzhak used it 1 year, and then Yitzhak sold it to Dr. Block, V'aloikeach Shana, Harizu Chazaka. This is a Chazaka, because afterwards, when Rich says to the son Yitzchak, or to Dr. Block, where's your star? So he says, what star? There doesn't have to be any paper, because there's already a Chazaka of 3 years. But here's an interesting thing. This is an interesting thing. The implication is that when Dr. Block bought it from Yitzchak, it means that Rich knew the connection. So the Gemara says, Lememra de loikeach islay kala, that when Dr. Block bought it from Yitzchak, so Avram had it 1 year, Yitzchak had it from 1 year, and Dr. Block had it from 1 year, but that the connection that Dr. Block got it from Yitzchak, so it should be a connected 3 years, that means that Rich would have to know about the purchase. V'mini, we learned not that way. Achla b'fneiha of shana. If, let's say, this property, the Marikama was Avram. And in this case, there's Gedalia. How did I miss Gedalia? Oh, there's Gedalia. He's on another one that didn't want to come to the shul in the rain. I know Gedalia lives very far away, Rabbi say. You should know. It must be torrential. Gedalia, we're glad you're joining us, even from the privacy of your home.
It's not raining. I'm just not feeling well.
Oh, you should feel better.
Oh, man,
yeah, I'm a little bit under the weather also. As a matter of fact, my wife and I went to Woodburn to eat something, and uncharacteristically, there was an urgent care there, and I hopped into the urgent care. It was empty. And I took a culture, Baruch Hashem. The rapid, at least, was negative, but my throat is bothering me a little bit. But anyway, so if, let's say, Gedalia is the Marikama, he's the original owner. Well, what happened is no, not Gedalia. We're not doing this. Avram was the original owner. Avram was the Marikama. And Gedalia used the land bifnei ha'ov, in front of Avram, who was the original owner, Ashana. And then bifnei haben shtayim, and after Avram died, he used it in front of Yitzchak for 2 years. So now he has a total of 3 years. Or bifnei ha'ov shtayim, in front of Avram 2 years, or bifnei haben shana, in front of Yitzchak 1 year. Or bifnei ha'ov shana, or in the presence of Avram 1 year, or b'fnei haben shana, in the presence of Yitzchak another year, or b'fnei loikeach shana, and in the presence of Gedalia a 3rd year. In other words, Gedalia went ahead and bought it from Yitzchak. And then they said after 3 years, they said to Gedalia, what are you doing in the, not they said to Gedalia, and Avram had it. Sorry, I'm mixing everybody up. Let's start this again. The Gemara says, does lekeach, a buyer, is it known? If, let's say, Gedalia is occupying in the field, Achla b'fneya of Shana, the original owner was Avram, and he ate it in front of Avram 1 year, or b'fneya ben shtayim, and then when Avram died, he continued living it in front of Yitzchak 2 years, or b'fneya of shtayim, in front of Avram 2 years, or b'fneya ben Shana, in front of Yitzchak 1 year, or b'fneya of Shana, in front of Avram 1 year, or b'fneya ben Shana, in front of Yitzchak 1 year, and then Yitzchak sold it to Dr. Black, or b'fnei loikeach shana, and in front of Dr. Black 1 year, then either Yitzchak or Dr. Black can't say, what are you doing in the land? Because he could say, I was there 3 years, and the team did not make a protest. Harizu chazaka. But wait a second. Here's the problem. If a loikeach has occurred, then Dr. Black, and then Gedalia knew that Dr. Black bought it from Yitzchak. If Yitzchak is selling the field, then there's no greater mecha than that Gedalia is not the owner, because Yitzchak is going ahead and selling it. And therefore Dr. Black should have held, therefore Gedalia should have held the paper. So the Gemara says, if it's known about a purchase, so then Gedalia saw that Yitzchak in the 2nd year sold it to Dr. Black in the 3rd year, Gedalia should have said, that means he still thinks he owns the land. There's no protest greater than that, and Gedalia should have known to keep his paper. It must be that we say that he doesn't know about the sale. Says the Gemara, Amar Papa Kitan Yahi b'Meicher Sodoisav Stam. It's talking about where Yitzchak said, I'm selling all my property. And since he said, I'm selling all my property, now, he meant that the property that Gedalia is occupying is also sold. But he didn't say it. He just said, all my property. So that didn't alert Gedalia. If he only sold the land that Gedalia was occupying, then that would be a mecha. But he didn't do that. He just said, I'm selling all my land. And therefore that didn't put Gedalia on the alert to keep his paper. Now, the following people do not have a chazaka, because there's a plausible reason why they're occupying the land, or in the first case, the item, right? If If, let's say, I have your violin, I have a chazaka right away, because unless it's something that people lend out normally, if I have it, that means what's it doing by me? It's believable that I bought it. However, ha'omnin, a craftsman, like a violin repairman, can't claim that it's his, because it's normal for him to have it just to repair it. Vashutfin, if a partner is occupying a field for 3 years, he can't say that he bought it, because he's a partner, he has the right to be in there. Varisin, the same thing is true with a sharecropper. He can't say he bought the land, because he's in there because he's a sharecropper. Vapetropin, or if he's an executor who's in charge of taking care of the affairs of this man's property, the fact that he's in the land is not a proof that he owns it. So, ein lehem chazaka. Similarly, loyle ish chazaka b'nichsei ishtay. A man does not have a chazaka in the property of his wife, because since he's the husband, the wife is not going to protest that he's in there. A woman, even if she's in the property of her husband for 3 years, doesn't give her a chazak on her husband's property, because he's not going to protest that his wife is there. The father doesn't have a chazaka if he's in the property of his son, because the father doesn't protest when his son is there, and his son doesn't protest if his father is there. Now, these rules are talking about cheskas gimel shonim, which is proof of ownership. But then there's a different type of chazaka. There's a chazaka that's a kinyan. Right? We know that real estate is acquired b'kesef, b'shtar, u'b'chazaka. The chazaka of a kinyan means that if you make some kind of improvement, you acquire it with kinyan chazaka. And therefore, says the Mishnah, aval b'noisei matana, if I give Irving a gift of land, and he makes a chazaka, va'achin shecholku, or brothers that divide an estate, and each one makes a chazaka on their portion, va'marzik b'nichsei ager, and if a ger dies without relatives, whose real estate is up for grabs, to the first one who makes a kinyan, so now if a person puts a lock on the property, or the gadar, or he makes a fence, or paratz, or he makes an opening of koshu, thereby improving the land, harizu chazaka, that's the kinyan of chazaka. Now,
but there's no star by a gift, by a land?
what?
There's no star by...
There could be a star. We're just talking about the kinyan of chazaka.
The kinyan chazaka, we're not in the chazaka of 3 years. We're not touching
I just told you, this part of the Mishnah is talking about the kinyan of chazaka. Now, Avua de Shmuel v'Levi, the father of Shmuel and Levi, Tonu, taught, like in our Mishnah, Shutaf ein loy chazaka. A partner can't have a chazaka because he has the right to be there. He's a partner in the land. So the fact that the other one did not protest is not a proof because he's a partner. Bikoshchein umen, and surely a craftsman doesn't have a chazaka. You see, because a craftsman never had an ownership. The shutav had a partial ownership. So maybe we would think if he uses for 3 years the entire land, maybe that gives him a claim. But the Uman never had an ownership. Shmuel Tani Uman, Shmuel had a different gears in our Mishnah. Shmuel taught a craftsman doesn't have a chazaka, ein le chazaka. Aval shutif yesh le chazaka. A shutif does have a chazaka. Va'az the Shmuel etamei, Shmuel goes according to his reasoning. The Amar Shmuel hashutafin marzikin zelzeh. A shutaf could have a chazaka and develop a 3-year proof against his partner, ume'idin zalzeh, and they could give testimony one on the other. And we'll see why this is not considered partial, why it's not considered nageya b'davar, because it sounds like since they're partners, to give testimony, you're partial. That's going to be tomorrow's sugya. Why is not nageya b'davar? V'nasin shoymrei sachar zelazeh, and they become paid watchmen one for another, because what they do is they do quid pro quo. They have a reciprocal arrangement. I'll watch the whole field for July, and you'll watch the whole field for August. And since they are swapping, they are considered to be hired watchmen, and therefore they're chayiv even b'gneva v'aveda. So now, says the Gemara, Ramalei Rab Abba Rab Yehuda, Rab Abba asked a stira, a contradiction to Rab Yehuda, b'marosa debei Rab Zakkai, in the cave of the house of Rab Zakkai. So the Maritz Chiyas says this was a time of persecution when the study of Torah was banned, so they learned in a cave. There's another gersa, as you see over here from the Bach, b'matzarta debei Rav Zakkai, by the press. So while they were by the wine press, they were talking Torah. And he said, Mi amar Shmuel shutuf yesh lo chazaka. Did Shmuel say that a partner could have chazaka? Ay v'amar Shmuel shutuf ki yarid b'rishus dami. That a shutuf is like someone that has permission to enter. Now, if he's like someone that has permission to enter, so then there's no reason for the other shutuf to be meicha, then he shouldn't be able to develop a chazaka. Lav lememra the shutuf ain't like chazaka. So here, the Gemara makes a chiluk. And this, let me talk to you about this chiluk outside first. As we welcome in Yisrael Meir Kaplan for our 29th Zoomer of the evening. Let's get partners. Let's get partners, some likely partners. Okay, we got it. Shelley and Rich, they're partners, right? So there's 2 ways of making a chazakah. Either Shelley uses the better half of the field for 3 years, and he claims that he's using the better half for 3 years, and therefore he claims that he bought the better half. Or he's using the entire field for 3 years, and he claims that Rich sold it to him. Sold him his portion. So the Gemara says, Loi kasha, hadinachis lekula. One is where Shelley used the whole field for 3 years. Hadinachis lepalga. One is where Shelley used the better half for 3 years. Imrei leila haigisa, v'imrei leila haigisa. Some say it one way, and some say it the other way. In other words, in one place Shmuel says there is a chazaka, and one place Shmuel says there isn't a chazaka. And the Gemara says you could go either way. So now let me explain you both ways. One way is that it's not likely a shutif wants to make money on his property every year. So it's not likely that he would let Shelley use the whole field for 3 years. He wants to have, he's an accountant. He wants to have something to show every year. It's not likely he would let Shelley use the whole field for 3 years. So if he does, Shelley gets a chazaka. But Shelley using the better half for 3 years, that's an arrangement that they do. You use the better half 3 years, and then the next 3 years, I'll use the better half. So, on that, you can't make a chazakah. That's one way of looking at it. Then there's another way of looking at it, to the contrary. If they're both splitting it, then Rich is a number man. He's not letting Shelley use the better half for 3 years in a row. Let's split it equally. If Shelley uses the better half for 3 years in a row, it must be that he sold them the better half. And they divided. But if Shelley used the whole field 3 years in a row, that's likely that Rich said, you use it for 3 years, and I'll use it the next 3 years. And then there's no chazakah. So you could go either way. Ravina says, I don't like this either way. One is talking about one thing, one is talking about another thing. No. They're both talking about where Shelley used it for 3 full years. V'lekasha. In one place Shmuel says there's a chazaka, in one place Shmuel says there's no chazaka. Hodi isba din chaluka. If it was a field that was divisible, then it's not likely that Rich would go 3 years without getting some profit. And therefore, if he didn't say you use part and I'll use part, it must be that he sold it to Shelley. Hadalesbadin chaluka. But if it's such a small property that 2 people can't use it at a time, so there it's normal for him to say you use it for 3 years and then I'll use it for 3 years, and then Shelley cannot develop a chazak. So now the Gemara asks a very technical question. Gufa. Amar Shmuel, Shutif, Shelley, is kiyared b'rishus dami. It's as if he went in with permission. So what does that mean? That he can't get a chazaka. So my kamash malon Shutif ain't like chazaka, so then say that. Lema Shutif ain't like chazaka. What's this that Shelley is like he's going in with permission? Just say Shutif ain't like chazaka, because since he's a partner, Rich is not going to protest, so he can't develop a chazaka. So why does it have to say that Shutif kiyarid b'rishus dami? So the Gemara answers with a highly technical answer. So again, I'm making a lot of prefaces over here. As we welcome in Richard Rosenzweig, I didn't notice him come in on Facebook. So let me tell you what's going on over here. Let's take Stephen Holtzman. If Stephen Holtzman comes into my property and plants trees, I didn't tell him to plant trees, but he planted trees. So he benefited me. That's the din of hayored l'seich stei chaveiroi, and he made an improvement. So if it's a field where I would want trees to be planted, so then it's considered as if he went in with permission, and he gets like a sharecropper. He gets like a sharecropper. If, however, it was a field that I would have planted grain in, and not trees, so then I only have to pay him his expenses. Now let's say he goes into the field, and there was stuff already growing in the field, and he harvested it. So if he's considered like a person that was Yorei Bereshus, then he gets a portion of that which is already growing in the field, which is called Magiel Ksafim. It reached the shoulders, and he just harvested it. If he came in and did the wrong thing, so he's like one who was without Reshus, so then he doesn't get a portion from what was already growing in the field. So here the Gemara says that when Shmuel says that when Shelley is in the property, he's considered like a Yorei Bereshus. When he's using the better part of the property or the whole field, he's considered like he's Yorei Bereshus. That means that he gets the extra portion as one who is a sharecropper, and he even gets from that which was already growing in the field. Let's see it inside. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba Bar Avu, Leimer, Shenoitel b'shvach hamagia l'ksafim. He gets that which was already growing in the field, like a sharecropper, and he gets even besada she'ena asuyalita, even a field that's usually not planted with trees. Since he's a shutef, he gets kesada asuyalita, like a field which is planted with trees, and he gets to be treated like a sharecropper and not just the expenses. Okay, now Rabbi Say, let me tell you a little bit about tomorrow. Tomorrow, Yetz Hashem, I'm coming in. We're going to the Beis Forest to visit my father. And then I'm planning to be in Fairways for tomorrow, Mincha Mar. What time is Mincha tomorrow in Fairways?
7:45.
Wow, it's early, 7:45. Okay. At Mincha, when I do the Mishnah Yomis, we're going to be finishing Seder Nashim. So I'm going to be making a siyum. Now, anybody that's in attendance in Fairways tomorrow by Mincha Mariv, if your wife comes, I'm going to have something there for people to taste when I make the siyum. Then they could go home and eat fleisches. Again, we're making a siyum on Seder Nashim in Shul tomorrow night. If your wife comes and hears the siyum, then you could go home afterwards and eat fleisches. Now, for those of you that are listening on Zoom, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do two things. I'm going to make the siyum on Zoom. Now, normally a siyum on Zoom, just to hear the siyum is not enough. But if you're finishing also, so you're making a siyum also. So you could certainly eat fleisches if you're making a siyum. If you finished Seder Nashim with us. And I'm going to do that also, so at around 8 o'clock I'll put on the Zoom, and after the Daf and Chumashir, I'm going to make another siyum when I do the Mishnah Yomis again. Maybe I'll even do the Mishnah Yomis before the Chumashir, for those that don't want to stay for the Chumashir. So you can do that as well. Is everybody following me?
And only Seder Nashim, if even if a person, let's say, finished Kedushin, that's not enough?
That's pushing it. That's
what time
pushing.
is Daf Yomi tomorrow?
What do you mean? Tomorrow Daf Yomi will be
Normal time?
normal time.
Okay.
Normal time, 8:40. Now we're going to do the Mishnah Yomis for tonight.